Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to give another moment here for everyone to continue getting logged in and connected. So thank you for just sitting tight for another moment. Just give it another second for everyone to get logged in. Okay, perfect. Welcome, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us today for our Career Hacks Online Edition, Building Your Best Business. My name is Cait Krouse. I'm the Director of Alumni Relations for the School of Engineering. And I'm joined, as always, today by my two outstanding colleagues, Alyssa Kelly, the Director of Alumni Relations for the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, as well as Josh Prue, the Director of Alumni Engagement for the UConn Foundation. We are going to be your point of contact today. Should you need anything throughout, please feel free to just ping us with the message and we'll attempt to serve you in whatever capacity we can, specifically if you're needing technical assistance. Today, we are thrilled to bring you a panel of outstanding Huskies who have made a name for themselves in the world of business and entrepreneurship. So today, we're hoping that they'll do their best to give you an insight into their worlds, what it's like to own their own business and work in the space of small business capacity, some of the challenges and triumphs that they've experienced along the way. And after the discussion, for those of you who are able to stay with us, we will be breaking out into small groups where we're fortunate enough to have a number of advisors from the Connecticut Small Business Development Center here to chat one-to-one and answer some of your most pressing questions. Before we jump into that, I have just a few housekeeping items. We do ask that you please keep your microphones on mute throughout the panel discussion to prevent disruption. However, the chat function is open, so we encourage you to ask questions there. Josh and Alyssa and I will be monitoring the chat. So if you need anything or have any issues, please feel free to request it through the chat or go ahead and send us a direct message. Additionally, feel free to take advantage of the digital networking opportunity here and drop in your LinkedIn information, where you're logging in from today, or perhaps what your business is and sort of why you're excited to be here. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the fantastic panel that we have. I will let each of our panelists introduce themselves as we get rolling, but to kick things off, I'd like to introduce our moderator today, Matt Pugliese. Matt has spent his career working in the performing arts, community development, and higher education. Prior to joining the Connecticut Small Business Development Center, he served as the executive producer and managing director for the Connecticut Repertory Theater, the professional theater at UConn's executive director for the Odd Fellows Playhouse Theater in Middletown, Connecticut. He's taught financial management in UConn's MFA Arts Administration program, and he serves on Old Saybrook's Board of Selectmen. He's also the chair of Saybrook's Economic Development Commission, which he served on since 2015. So thank you, Matt, so much for being with us. And without further ado, I'll hand it over.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Kate, and to Josh and Kate and Alyssa for inviting me to be part of this. It's always great to do things for UConn. And it's such a pleasure to be here with these three phenomenal entrepreneurs to talk about the way that they have navigated their business journey and also the challenges that the last year and the COVID pandemic has presented for us. So I want to get right to them. First, we have Constantine Aline, class of 2017 MBA. She is the founder of Civilian Corrections Academy. And Connie's passion is corrections, the workforce, the offender population, the institution, and it's her understanding of the high stakes institutional and psychological dangers that fueled the creation of her Fly Behind the Wall podcast and Civilian Corrections Academy. And her personal mission is to connect civilians, build cross-functional engagement, and transform institutional cultures to create safer and more inclusive environments. So Connie, do you want to just say a couple of additional words about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My whole bio was kind of out there already, but I absolutely think that this is a great opportunity to be able to just connect with people and really just hear firsthand how we've had our struggles, right? Which, I think every entrepreneur has. And, we also have our triumphs. So I look forward to hopefully allowing myself to give as much as I can so that, this is all worthwhile for everyone.
Great. Thank you so much. And next up, we have Reza Amin, class of 17 with his PhD. He is the co-founder of Encapsulate and Bastion. And Reza founded Bastion in 2018 with a vision to provide a private at-home reproductive health and wellness solution for men. And since 2013, he's been working on the design and development of a lab on paper platforms for medical diagnostics. He has had an entrepreneurial journey and has won several competition and fellowships along the way. Reza, what can you say a little bit about yourself today? Well, you're muted, sir.
Hi everyone, how are you? And I'm so excited being part of this panel, and it's exciting to share with you my journey so far, starting with UConn and now at Encapsulate and Bastion, and about how we survived in pandemic and what we learned in pandemic, and how exciting would be the future for us.
Excellent. And last but not least, we have Ted Fournier. He is the owner of Orange Shoe Personal Fitness and a graduate of the School of Business. He is an entrepreneur based in Chicago. Ted grew up in Bristol, Connecticut, though, and holds his BS in finance from UConn. Ted has had quite the track to get his entrepreneurial journey going, and starting his career in commercial banking. He has now moved into Orange Shoe Personal Fitness, focusing on customization and client retention. His team offers in-person and virtual wellness services. Ted utilizes his financial background and his lessons in perseverance and fervor for fun to lead his team and customers to success. Ted, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for reading my bio right there. I don't have much to add to that. I grew up a Husky fan. I went to UConn, and now I live in the Midwest, and I think it's just awesome every time I bump into somebody, around the country that, or out all the way out here that is a UConn alum. They just seem to be like a really great person and very successful. And, I'm excited to be part of this panel and, encourage that great representation with all of you going forward.
So Ted, if we could start with you, what kind of hurdles have you faced in the last year as a result of the pandemic? And what are the tools that you've used to navigate them?
Yeah, so we're kind of on the front line, my employees in particular in our fitness facilities. We had to kind of just we do a lot outside of the facilities, but had to kind of just get back and focus to what happens in that facility, which is really kind of our bread and butter. So what I mean is we do fitness stuff, corporate wise. I have enough facility downtown that nobody is downtown Chicago anymore, and travel to people's homes. So those were kind of like ancillary parts of our business, but we kind of focused everything back in the studios. And there's a lot of hurdles that happened this year. I could just say financial, but everybody knows that there was a financial problem for fitness and gyms. I think one of the major problems was keeping our employees. So, you hear about the PPP and all this federal support. That's good and all, and it definitely helped. But real world example is we took a huge hit in March and April financially, and then we worked our butts off to make sure that we had a big bounce back come June 1st. So all of a sudden our revenue for the second quarter doesn't meet the parameters for the PPP, but I bought, 20 or 30 grand worth of, disinfecting equipment, which it was not budgeted for, and, tried to keep our employees happy by paying them a little extra. So you end up kind of in a crappy financial position, without much help. And additionally, we've all had it really hard, but frontline kind of employees that maybe aren't health workers have it really hard. So when you go into a store over the past year, and particularly early on in the pandemic, you often see complaints online. It's like, oh, I saw somebody without their mask on. Or sometimes I'll be in my business by myself and somebody's knocking on the door saying, put your mask on, but I'm in there by myself, and these employees, they are playing mask police. They're getting paid probably less than they ever were. They're at work 8 hours a day. They don't have the option to be home on Zoom. And, you know, they're very strict. They have their mask on for 9 straight hours. They're playing the mask police. They just have a lot of freedom constraints. So it's been very hard to keep your employees happy. A lot of people have just left the industry. And yeah, those have been some of the hurdles we've had. And additionally, I didn't, you know, do this to be in my business all day. I want to kind of be operating on a higher level, and I've had to reinsert myself. You know, I have a training certificate just to kind of learn the business, but I haven't trained anybody in 4 or 5 years. And even when that was just 1 or 2 longtime clients, but I've been on the floor. I'm in my business all the time. I'm cleaning the bathroom, you know, all the stuff that you do kind of when I started my business is now part of my daily life all of a sudden again, when it was never my intention at this point in my career to be doing that. So hopefully that helps frame that for you.
Yeah, very much. Thank you. It's been quite the hurdles that we've had to deal with depending on the industry. Reza, how has that differed in your business?
Yeah, so it was interesting, like hearing all the stories and experience that Ted had. In our case, we closed our fundraising and our seed investment during pandemic. So October 2020, we closed our fundraising. And we expanded suddenly our operations. 75% of the employees that we have, I never met them, and they were virtual since, and still are. Like we didn't have a chance to meet each other in person. So we missed a lot of sort of culture building in the company. We ended up like forcing a video on. Expanding the time and hours and happy hours in order to create those, culture required in the company in order to make sure that we have a right team and set everything for success. The other thing that it was a little bit of a surprise for us, Bastion is a men's health platform. We are focused on a testing kit for men's fertility and a digital health platform for having direct conversation with physicians to get treatment plan and to get sort of like the diagnosis and prescriptions. Starting pandemic, unfortunately, all our clinical trials stopped, and recently now we are starting them again. So it was a long pause of 12 months, almost 12 months in our clinical trials. And all the timeline and planning that we had was sort of like changed all of a sudden. So it was a little bit difficult. The few first sort of like weeks, we didn't know what to do. We didn't know how long the whole pandemic is going to take. And it was not really clear. So we ended up like re-strategizing, focusing on our digital health. And actually, like we needed also to structure the team again so that we are set for creating a digital health platform. It was an opportunity because everything, so all of a sudden, digital health become familiar for everyone, but we were not ready, but we needed to do and work so hard in order to create that platform, a digital health platform, which is now live in Florida, and we have 10 doctors on the platform in Florida. We launched our telehealth and Bastion mobile application as a men's health platform is live in App Store and Google Play. We are happy that we are the first men's reproductive health mobile application on App Store and Google Play. So a lot of good stories and a lot of good success, but I can remember like last March, we were just surprised and we didn't know what to do because it was like, what should we do? How can I change all the strategy and planning when we don't know how long the whole thing may take? Who should I hire now? And it was just like a lot of uncertainties, but I think now we are resilient to all those uncertainties. And I think after pandemic, it would be a great experience, because I think any other obstacle would be an easy obstacle for us.
No, that's great. It sounds like you tried to make the best out of the situation and still move the business forward in really successful ways.
Yeah.
Connie, how about yourself? What hurdles have you and your businesses faced as a result of the pandemic?
So certainly the business model initially was, being able to go on site and do training in the academy space for corrections. And when the pandemic hit, there was no more on-site possibility. Essentially, corrections had closed the door to any outsiders coming in because they were already challenged with just sort of keeping themselves safe as well as the inmates. So it immediately pushed me into creating or transitioning all of the training into the digital platform so that training could still be available. I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity that there would be a lot of downtime internal to the facilities, that people would actually have time for training. And in this instance, there would be no more conferences, there would be no more all of these other ways of getting training. So this was sort of like almost a perfect storm, but like who's really prepared for that, right? So it was a lot of days of work to get all of the trainings online, get them available, and then to change the entire marketing strategy because it was no longer this on-site presence, but now here's this digital platform that I needed to make sure would be, accessible in many facilities where, they don't have Wi-Fi, depending on the location of this facility. It could be hard to gain access. And a lot of the access issues are sort of hardwired because the facilities are old. So it was one, making everything available online, and then two, making myself available for those who still wanted to do training, but have me sort of be in this webinar space to kind of help facilitate that. So that was definitely one of the big issues that, I had to hurdle during this time. And of course, it's sort of the financial side, right? Like making sure that you do have the necessary finances in place or the capital in place to kind of do all of that work so that, your end product is one that people will want to pay for. So that definitely was a big challenge for me to hurdle. But now it's almost like it's probably the best thing that I've done, right? Because as you consider going into multiple facilities, there's 1,900 at least in the United States, right? And how do I personally get to all of these facilities, right? And so the digital platform makes it available to everybody, as opposed to me having to physically be on site somewhere. So it kind of was, the silver lining to the situation.
No, that's great. I mean, you definitely have, looked at this moment in time and really pivoted to take advantage of it. So I think that, leads me to my next question. How did each of you develop that entrepreneurial mindset that really allowed you to approach the situation and navigate how to move your business forward? Reza, can I start with you?
Yeah, sure. So I think after a few years of being in a startup life and being an entrepreneur, what I learned is that being an entrepreneur is not like having a job. Being an entrepreneur is just choosing a lifestyle. So I decided to choose a lifestyle. So every single day I question things and try to come up with a better solution for them. Try to have the ideation process every day, trying to come up with a solution. I ended up like learning every single thing, new things in front of me, and trying to basically have this lifestyle of always learning and being and living in a space which is not my comfort zone, and then trying to create a sort of a habit of executing and doing things. And always there are two other things that helps I think any entrepreneur to risk, because when it comes to any uncertainties like during COVID, we needed to risk, and I think the nature of all the nature of that uncertain environment is has a lot of risk that we need to overcome. But I think we it was quite a journey learning how to risk and how to risk smartly, and eventually I think persisting was the last stage always during the last 2 or 3 years that I was working on Bastion and encapsulate. We needed to persist, knock every single door, wake up the next day, start persisting, as if you didn't hear all the no's yesterday. So I mean, it's interesting. So initially you have an idea, you get a lot of feedbacks, a lot of criticism, you improve it, you sit in front of investors. Out of like 100, probably 80 of them are going to say no, 20 of them are going to say, okay, interesting. You're going to have continue the conversation. You just need to know that you need to persist. And I guess that was the different stages that I've been in it. And I don't know like how maybe my personality evolved, but I think now I definitely know that I picked, and me and my family actually, we picked the lifestyle. It's not a job. It's sometimes it's more challenging. It's flexible. You have you're basically you're defining your own terms, but sometimes you need to work maybe 15 hours per day just because you have deadlines. You just want to make sure that you have enough funding for the paychecks for the next month or the next sort of like 3 months. Yeah, I pause here.
Right. No, that's great. So, I mean, Cait and Josh, I hope you're writing a bunch of that down to share with everybody, because those are some really good points. But persist, and every day forgetting about the no's you heard the day before. I really like those, Reza. Connie, how about yourself? How did you develop your entrepreneurial mindset?
I think it was probably, one of those. So I knew I was going to be transitioning out of prison, right? And it was like, well, you can't spend your entire career there. What is sort of your game plan to sort of shift from that environment? But it was also something that I really enjoyed. So how do I shift and still add value to the system? And so back in 2015, I decided to go get an executive MBA. And I think that opened my eyes to, really what are the possibilities? I must say that, the program was well worth it for anyone who's not sure about going into the executive program. It was well worth it. But that in of itself, I think, began to sort of plant the seeds that there are opportunities that you just might not be considering because you didn't know that they were opportunities. And I think once I decided like, okay, we need a game plan, it was all about doing the research. It was all about figuring it out, right? Like, so you've got this passion. What do you do with this passion? And what do you do when you don't know what to do next, right? So it was really figuring out what are the resources that are available out there? How can I tap into those resources and really start to develop a business plan? So, one thing I could say was it was a lot of the research. And, certainly along the way, there is that moment where you think like, is this really what you want to do, right? Because everything does depend on you. The success of your business is going to depend on you, and being able to make those decisions. Do you feel comfortable? Are you risk averse? Those were things that I needed to think about. And because corrections is kind of such a niche space, it was, are you willing to do the work in order to get people to understand how important this is? Why this mission is important. And really, to Reza's point, like you have to decide what's best for your family, right? Do you have the wherewithal as well as the time to invest in building this business? and what impact does that have on your family, right? Like how many, gymnastics events are you going to miss? Are you going to miss soccer? How are you going to feel about all those things that you're going to ultimately sacrifice, I think, for the sake of the success of the business? So, I'd have to say deciding how my family and my social supports were going to be able to kind of support me in the midst of all of that, and figuring out what was the best approach so that I could still feel, whole as a person, because entrepreneurship pulls you in many directions and there are many sleepless nights. And the worry about the actual success of the business is very real. And making sure that what you do is actually translating to the world and to the population you want to serve. So, I have to say, really making sure that I was mentally and physically prepared for this journey.
That's great. And I mean, making sure that you have checked in yourself with that lifestyle change, that's so critical, because that's every day. And like you said, that's what keeps you up at night. So Ted, how have you developed your entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah, I think I probably always was meant to do this. I was like the kid in school, like selling like a mixtape and stuff like that, and mowing lawns and shoveling everybody's yard. But I just kind of got sick of the corporate world and some of the red tape, and I really still enjoy working on my own terms. The good times are great and the bad times are bad. So, somebody says one thing to you and they probably didn't even mean it, like an employee, and you're thinking about it all night, or you remember that, you have some big financial, commitment at 11:30 p.m. You're thinking about this, and, maybe it's something 6 months down the road, but it's just weighing on your mind. But on the contrary, when I say the great times are great, we talk about all the things that we might miss, but also you can kind of make your own schedule. So there's a lot of great stuff that you are able to attend. Yes, when something hits the fan, you have to be there, but also you're kind of working on your own terms. And that's something I hated about the corporate world, and it just ate me away every day. I didn't like that. It was banking. So if anybody's worked in, corporate finance type stuff, that's kind of the way it goes. But yeah, I think, with the pandemic, it kind of was starting it all over, and I think we all knew that we were going to get through it or find something cooler to do if this thing failed, because we already did it. You had already hit that launch. And yeah, that's my answer, I guess.
Yeah. So Ted, kind of going on that a little bit more, you were in banking and finance, people would say, wow, that's like you're pretty safe and set in that career. What was that critical moment when you knew that it was time to take the leap, to jump in and go out on your own? How did you evaluate making that decision?
Yeah. I have a bit of a unique situation because I was in kind of a traumatic car accident that kind of led me, I guess, pushed me on this path. But as I said, I probably was going to do this anyway. I don't know if it would have been this industry. I really got into kind of physical rehabilitation and fitness as a result of some pain I was in, and I was in pain a lot sitting. So sitting in a corporate setting kind of pushed it. But what you were saying, like, why did I leave?
Yeah. What was that moment that you said, okay, it's today, not something down the road?
Yeah, well, I had 2 days that I was going to quit, and I, didn't have the cojones to do it. But, I had been talking about it for a year and thinking about different things. And I realized that, so I had saved some money. I knew that I was going to be okay for X amount of months. I knew that I wasn't going to burn any bridges. I was going to work my butt off till the last day there. So I could always go back to that. So I think that's really important, like to have at least some sort of safety net. And I just needed that clear mindset for a few months to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. And I couldn't do that while trying to also be good at my job. So, I was just kind of like fed up with talking about it. And, I'd already told a lot of people that this is what I wanted to do. So I just had to kind of do it. And everybody was really kind of receptive to me leaving my job. And it was the right decision because, once I had that clear headspace, I was able to figure out what I wanted to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Connie, what about you? What was that kind of critical moment that you decided, okay, I'm not going to do this on the side anymore, but, I can make a go of this?
So I think I'm still in that moment, right? So, as I mentioned previously, so I work for Pratt & Whitney by day. I am a criminal justice professor by night, and I do my business all day long. I try to compartmentalize as much as I can. I've talked to other entrepreneurs, like, how do you know it's time? Like, what's the number, right? Is there a certain number that makes you feel safe to take the leap, right? I think my biggest thing is that I really do enjoy all that I do. And, I've stopped looking at my academy as a side hustle, which I think, it's like you are going to put the same effort that you put into Pratt & Whitney into your academy, because this is the legacy for yourself, for your family, for your daughter, right? And so I do think that, maybe in another year or so, I would probably be more comfortable to say, okay, I can take the leap and I can go on to something else, right? Like I can go in full time into the academy and, but the reality is right now, like I'm okay. I just know that this isn't sustainable. So that's why I appreciate these kind of panels, because I get to listen to other people who say, this is how I knew that I was okay to do it.
Yeah, I think that that's really great. I mean, to stop thinking about it as a side hustle and give it the same effort and attention that you're giving your full-time job. That's such a psychological shift. And I really do think that, is a powerful message. Reza, how about you? I mean, you're in academia, lots of people that are pursuing a PhD. The next step is, a department job at the University of Connecticut teaching. How did you decide to make that leap and go in this direction?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that was one of the, risks that I should sort of like think about back then in 2018. So I did my PhD in medical device, and I was seeing three paths, two of them so clear that I could continue. One was to go to industry, work with medical device companies. The other one was to go to academia, working on research, publishing papers. And the third one was saying that I already have few publications on technologies and patents. Why shouldn't I focus on them and bring them to reality and move them forward? And then the third one was definitely the option that I picked, but I needed to basically risk that I needed to make sure that I can go ahead and implement and basically bring them to reality. So I made the toughest decision back then. I decided to stay with the company and decided to build everything from scratch. But I don't know if it's difficult to say how I made that decision. So the idea was promising, but we didn't have a lot of funding. We had some resources, but we really didn't have funding. It was just a vision that we believed in it, and maybe it was just a decision, a gut feeling, and the decision that we made back then. And I guess it was a good decision and risk that I made, because at any point you can come back and with the skill sets that you learned during running your business, you can go back to any other industry and work for a corporate sort of company, because you learned a lot. And I think the journey is really like fascinating, and you have a lot of failure and success stories and experience that just give you very strong sort of like background to be able to work in other teams. So yeah, so yeah, that's my answer. But I don't have a recipe, to be honest, because it's just like many times you just make the decision. There is not too much logic behind it, but then you just feel like it's the right choice to do it now, because I can make the risk now, but maybe 10 years from now it might be difficult to make all those risks that I'm taking right now.
Yeah, no, that's very good point. And thank you for sharing, the complexity that really goes into analyzing everything in life, everything in your work life, your personal life that's going into this, and really taking that risk. So, we do have a chance for question and answers, but I want, before, as everyone's typing those into the chat area and sending them in, one last quick question for each of you. What's your best advice for a budding entrepreneur? Ted.
Yeah, kind of building off of what Reza was just saying is there is no real logic, but I say, and I read this in a magazine or something when I was considering this, is just do it. Like, you can keep reading all this stuff out there. You just do it. And I promise you, if it's meant to be and you're a true entrepreneur, you're going to outwork everybody to make that happen.
Nice. Reza, what's your best advice?
So I think my best advice is whatever idea, I mean, if I start this again, whatever idea that I have, I write it down and I start presenting it to my real customers from day one. Just write it down, start a Survey Monkey, start putting it in your Facebook and wherever you think it's appropriate. Put it in front of them and then ask them to sign up. Just I think it's very important to talk to your customers from day one, and then that also helps you and give you more confidence that your solution is right and you can make the risk. And then I think it's I think it's not easy to say like everyone should take a risk, but I guess it's important at some point that you make a risk and persist, and that's the only way you can succeed. And as Ted says, you just need to do it.
Connie, what about you? What's that best piece of advice you could give right now?
The best piece of advice I could give is that you have to do what's best for you, right? Like, your vision is just that. It is your vision, the way you see the solution carried out, and everyone may not align with your vision, and that's okay, right? Like, if you've done the due diligence, you've done your research, and you know that this is a solution, right? You just got to try it, right? Because over time, whether that one thing works or it doesn't, each time you fail, you're going to learn how to do it better. Exactly. And so the not doing it and staying on the sidelines is never going to help you. It is the doing that is going to get you to the next step.
I like that. So we have some great questions coming in, and Connie, this first one, you mentioned this, so I'll bring it to you. Sleepless nights. What do you recommend for a business owner to ensure that they have that mythical work-life balance and they're not working 25 hours a day, 8 days a week?
So one of the things that I've started doing is everything goes on the calendar, and it may not be practical, but if I schedule things and then I just don't have more time for it, like, then it has to go to tomorrow, right? Like, I've been intentional about having a cutoff as to when I stop working. And granted, there are going to be things that kind of you may toil with that night, but you're not still sitting in front of your computer trying to make it happen. And so being very intentional and strategic about what I put on my calendar from day to day is really what helps me make sure that I get some sleep at night.
Yeah, I agree with that. Calendar management is key, and we really have to hold ourselves accountable, I think, at the end of the day. Ted, here's a question for you, different question. Do you think that students should be encouraged to think about entrepreneurship?
I do. I think entrepreneurship, is kind of a driver of our country and our economy. And I think, a lot of us are lost when we get out of college. And if you go into your first job, even at a small business, I am kind of lucky to have some really high quality people come into my business. They have master's degree. Basically, we can call it whatever we want it, but they're a personal trainer. They might help me with, finance stuff and marketing and stuff like that. But they don't ever seem to think like, oh, maybe they always think I'm going to do this for 2 years and then I'm going to go into the corporate world or something like that. When I try to say, hey, help me with a bunch of this stuff and I will help fund your new business. Like if you want to be partners, if you want to do something like that, and it never really seems to enter their mind. We're just so dominated by kind of large companies right now, and even side hustles, but people just call them side hustles. That could be your focus.
Great.
I think it makes it's a great lifestyle, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it does, I did my undergrad degree in theater, and, you think you just go out and get a job and you don't realize that every specific play that you end up working on is its own entrepreneurial venture, and how much you have to really encourage that. And, I know in that particular area, that type of education is missing. So I think across really all academic disciplines, it's really important that we encourage that conversation. Reza, angel investors, what are some of the challenges or concerns that you've had, and what would you, if somebody's looking to approach an angel investor right now, what should they be on the lookout for?
So, that's a great question. And at least for Bastion, what we do every single day, and as a scientist and an engineer, I'm doing more business than anything else these days. I'm talking to investors more than to anyone else, and I don't know which kind of animal I am, because I do more accounting than any science work. But in general, like you need to start talking to investors from the starting point, just because you need a team around any idea to go forward. So you need investors, you need the right team, you need scientists, you need people who are salespeople to represent you. But back to your question regarding angel investors. First of all, your investor should be strategic, helping you building your product. It's not just the money that you get from them. They are part of the team. They might have background, they might have ideas, they might have right people to join and help you build your team. And also they might have some path to help you sell your product eventually. But in order to get in order to close your fundraising rounds, and I think the question might be about how to approach angel investors. We do see the whole process as a sales funnel. You're creating this huge sales funnel, which we reach out to a lot of angel investors and investors in general, and then we walk them through through different stages of letting them know what we are doing, present to them, meet to them, talk to them. And we used to actually go for lunch together just to know each other and see if they are the right partner for us. And back to what Konstantin said, not all of them are going to buy your idea, buy your vision. You just need part of those investors in your sales funnel to believe in you and help you grow your business. And you need to make sure that you pick the right partner. So again, you need to create that sales funnel, reach out to as many as you can, walk them through the funnel, the sales funnel, and eventually at the end of on the top of the funnel, you may have 100 people that you are talking to. At the end of the funnel, you might have like 5, 10 that you want to close your investment with.
That's great. That's really great insight, and on a topic that we could talk about for a very long time and is very complicated. So here's one that really, you know, all three of you have businesses that are in very different sectors. How is your communication with your customers and stakeholders evolving right now? I mean, people are Zoom fatigued, but at the same time, we're connecting in really productive ways, like moments like this. What are you doing in your space? Ted, you're brick and mortar. So, you know, how has that really started, you know, to change for you right now versus the start of the pandemic?
Yeah, let's talk about what happened 5 minutes before this started. Is the mask mandate was pulled for the city of Chicago, where they had been the state had let it go, the CDC had made their announcement, and the city had been kind of mute on it, leaving us the decision to me to kind of navigate this confusion for our clients, and I don't have the answer. But you know, so one thing that's really changed is when the government says jump, I jumped for the first few months. Ted, you can open this day. I tried to open that day. Ted, you can have 5 people in that room instead of 4 now. So then I like adjust everything to 5 people. That was just crazy. And the amount of work and just like shifting your business, and it all depends on the communication. That's why I'm talking about this. So, you know, I kind of wait to see what other people do for a couple days, and then, you know, work on my mass communication, have a meeting with my team probably before that to kind of explain where we're at, so they can, you know, they're client facing, so they can see that, and then just be very direct in communication versus, you know, trying to really kind of not talking about what my reasons are for making a decision. Just, this is it, you know, this is happening. And, you know, customer service is a big part of my business. So I do get a lot of responses, and kind of, I understand, but this is how it is, and this is what we're doing. So you need to decide what works best for you. Be very direct, but am in direct communication with clients more than ever before.
Yeah, no, that is great. Clarity, direct, maybe not always being the first one out of the gate isn't the worst thing in the world. Mm-hmm. Connie, what about yourself? How is your strategy of communicating with your customer base right now evolving?
I think, for one, transparency has always been part of, you know, it's kind of just baked into the communication. But because I haven't been able to go into facilities, we've been Zooming and emailing the whole while, and that hasn't changed at all. Just because the institutions are spread so far out, you know, I don't think I think one thing that we've added, though, is I'm intentional about picking up the phone so that there are no misunderstandings, any miscommunications in expectations and such. And I found that the picking up the phone does allow to build a much stronger rapport with them, because now it's not just firing off an email, but it's building an actual relationship with a person. And so I would have to say that's probably the one thing that changed quite a bit, is that I'm on the phone a little more often than I was prior to.
I think that's great. Very great. Reza, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. I think Ted and Konstantin already gave a lot of good advice on this. And I guess just to reiterate, we know that our communication has been limited now to all the digital ways. And I think we need to, we for example, at Bastion, we always have the policy of having video on, just because we already limited everything. We cannot see them in person, so at least let's turn on the video. Never go on mute. Just so like we can keep the door as open as possible. We already like have a lot of limitations. Let's not limit it more, and then try to sort of schedule meetings and calls, and not try to sort of rely on emails. And then that was like what we did. So we have like 15 minutes meetings, 30 minutes meeting, and 1 hour meetings, and then we try to set those meetings more generously these days, just because we want to have more conversation, more FaceTime, and then somehow sort of make sure that if we cannot meet our customers or our partners in person, at least create that like humanized experience than just like emailing, which might not be as effective when you don't have in-person sort of interactions.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. And I mean, it is such a challenge, I know, in our own team, kind of bringing people together from across the state and creating that kind of culture and cohesion, but at the same time, not exhausting people with all of the time staring at their colleagues.
Yeah.
But it's been Ted, Constantine, Reza, thank you so much for the opportunity to have this candid conversation with you. And was my pleasure getting to facilitate. So I'll turn it over to Caitlin.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. And yes, I echo that. Thank you so much to all of our panelists for coming in and sharing some of your journeys and your expertise. And thank you to all of our alumni and friends who joined us today and for your thoughtful questions throughout this conversation. So for those of you who are joining us in the breakout rooms, in just a moment, you will be automatically placed into the room that you selected during registration. That said, if you've logged in today using a different email account than you did from your registration, you won't automatically be placed, but it's no problem. Just sit tight and we'll get you situated. Additionally, if you've changed your mind and decided that you would like to join a breakout session but didn't register for it, that's also no problem. We're happy to help you get into the room that you'd like. So just sit tight. The breakouts will last 30 minutes. We really hope that you use this time to network with one another and ask some really great questions. And then after that's done, we'll be gone. So thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to see you again soon. And in the meantime, be well.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.